healthier. Now these sensations of the body, if you recall any one of these, be it watching a film, be it watching a TV serial, be it eating a good delicious meal, be it taking a lot of, doing a lot of enjoyments with your friends, what happens with all these sensations? Can you continue with all these sensations throughout with sustainability? That does not happen generally, is not it? It interrupts. There is a life to it. You could call it a shelf life to understand it better. That yes, a film will finish, a TV episode will finish, a piece of sweet will finish, anything would finish. A good happy moment, a emotional moment will also finish. So, should we be working for that, or should we be working enough, that much, that keeps us prosperous? The message in this talk I want to give is that work to be prosperous. If wealth comes, fine, but don't go for it, because there are some hazards with it. We'll come back to that again. Second element is the relationships. Now relationships can be good and bad, and we all experience that. There are some people with whom you always want to be. There are some people with whom you never want to be. There are some people you would say, fine, I can be there for some time but not for long. But you will also recall that in the relationship, if there is no fulfillment, after some time you would say, okay, our relationship should either end here, either directly or indirectly. You start avoiding that person, and that's it. That is what happens. You always look for fulfillment in the relationship, and we keep going for fulfilling that. Is that right? I'll give you an example that you go to somebody's place and this person keeps talking to you for hours together but doesn't offer you water or some fruit drink or something to eat, and you are starving. You are telling him repeatedly that I am starving, but he doesn't give you anything. Right? This person, is this person caring, or this person is not caring? Not caring. Okay? As I can see the notes. Look at another scenario, that you call somebody at home and you give every type of food, everything. The moment he enters in house, चाय का कप दे दिया, खाना दे दिया, उसको और कुछ दे दिया, बिस्तर सोने को दे दिया, but आपने बात नहीं करी उससे, या उसने आपसे बात नहीं करी. You went to the house of this person and it did not happen. Then how would you love to have this relationship? You would still not love to have such a relationship. So what you require in relationship is the fulfillment, is not it? This is something which is required between a mother and a child, father and child, between two friends, between a student and teacher, is not it? Or even between somebody who is unknown to you, but at that moment that relationship should be fulfilling. So this is second thing which is required for happiness. The third thing which is required for happiness is an understanding. There are several occasions or moments in life where you are likely to go with your understanding, which may be different than the understanding other person has. And you could therefore misunderstand this person. If you misunderstand, what will happen? It will affect the relationship. It will definitely affect the harmony that you have had, and it's likely to get interrupted for a while, at least till you get the right understanding. So it is important for happiness, as we have tried to argue, that you require to have prosperity, you require to have fulfilling relationships, and you require to have a right understanding about the situation every time. Okay. Do we require anything more? We need to also learn that there is a sequence to these three elements every time. And the sequence has to be like this only. It cannot change. It has to be in this format. Because if you do not have a right understanding of the relationships, you will be unhappy. If you do not have a right understanding of prosperity, you will be unhappy. If you have a right understanding of relationships, but you do not have a right understanding of prosperity, you will still be unhappy. If you have a right understanding of prosperity, but you don't understand relationships, which are not fulfilling, you will still be unhappy, is not it? So this is the sequence which one has to follow every time to be happier. Is it understood? Does anybody want me to repeat that? No. Excellent. How can we get in that state? This is important. You have to constantly try for it. But is that trying enough? How will you try it? You need to try by self-exploring. We keep doing that sometimes. We start thinking about what has happened through the day. Many people are more thoughtful than others. They prefer to sit in a while for a while in a isolated place. Would like to think as to what did this person say, how did this person behave, what happened through the day. If I am unhappy, why I am unhappy? Can I understand this person better? That's the exercise in self-exploration. It's primarily evolving yourself. As you investigate within the circumstances or situations or in relationships, you come to understand that how the things have unfolded. And perhaps then with better right understanding through your self-exploration, you will say that, okay, this is what I need to look on, this is what I need not bother, and then you can get on with the life as such. Because then you again become happier with the right understanding about the situation. And therefore it is needed continuously. It is always important not to just follow the course which anybody says to you. You often don't do that as well many times, but there are people who would do that. And therefore it's important to develop this property or faculty of self-exploring, because what will it do? It will change your perception than the one which comes through the beliefs that we have developed, the preconditioning to the situations we have got. ये ऐसा ही बोलेगा, इस situation में ऐसा ही होगा, right? The self-exploration helps you to change this perception. This change which comes in helps you to be happier, provided you can stay flexible to this change and you accept that change. I'm coming to that. So this is what the happiness will require, that you need to have a right understanding of relationships and prosperity, have all these three, and you should have a sequence of this. And then you should also understand that you can have it in a better way, or you can always be more happier if you will develop the faculty of, or the characteristic of self-exploring every time on a regular basis. Now let me take you to another facet of the life here in LNMIIT, and that's primarily with the aspirations. What are your aspirations? To succeed at what? Acquired degree? Most of you? How many of you have come here to gain knowledge? Just knowledge, not the degree. You don't care for the degree. That you don't get the degree, that's fine. You will still get the knowledge. Right. Lesser number of hands. Right. I'll want you to go back to refer to the movie Three Idiots. That was the difference between Fung Suk Wan Lu and others, right? Try and do that. Knowledge is more important than degree, but your aspiration is degree. Remember this. You want to get the best grades. And that's what I've experienced. Nothing wrong with it. You work harder and you get it. But this is for a good package. That means eventually all our education, it's not your fault. I'm not saying it's your fault. It is something our education system has been built into, that it takes you to get a bigger, higher package. That's it. But if I recall my childhood or childhood of my parents, I would say that was not the case. Until I passed my graduation in medicine, I was never in my room between 5 o'clock in the evening till 8 o'clock in the night. I was always on the playgrounds. You never had that kind of maybe the, the, the choice that I could have. My parents perhaps had a bigger choice because there was not a question of even degree at that time. A package was never considered an issue. You could always get into somewhere and you were always, the families were happy with that. So it's the education which has done the major change here. But there are some aspirations of this institute also from you. I'm not talking on behalf of institute, this is my own genesis, so please don't take it as official. But how I see a student should here be working, should keep working hard. That is very important. And I learned it from my mentors. I am just repeating that in a way because when I was at Tata Memorial Hospital for the training in cancer surgery, my mentor, Dr. P.V. Desai, some of you might have heard of him, was the person who had ingrained into us these elements. Work hard, keep working hard, work harder if you can, communicate optimally every time with assertion. Don't be aggressive, don't be passive. It's very important to communicate, stay honest and in harmony with yourself and with others, everybody in the environment. Stay honest. This is very important that you always maintain this for your own peace. And believe in gradualism. Take an example of a tree. It takes about 10, 12 years, 15 years to grow and get a reasonable height. Nothing comes in quick manner. There are no shortcuts to the success in the life. What we call as success, it has no shortcuts. We always, most of us will reach at a point after 20 years. All those who are sitting here, you will realize that you are almost at a similar position. But to be at that position, which is good, which is satisfying, which is happier position, you need to ingrain into yourself all these elements. This is what I suppose Institute expects from you. I'll talk a little bit about life and profession, which I started in the beginning. That I do not see the life as a profession alone, as many doctor colleagues would see, seeing the patients only from morning to evening and not worrying about the life in general, which is important for us as well as for the family we live with, the community we live in. And this is one good example that I want to give you, is that this sinking boat tells us of a story of a fisherman who was taking a professor through a river in which suddenly there was a storm. But before that storm came in, the professor had kept on asking this fisherman, "Kahan tak pade ho? Kya kya kiya hai? Pada nahi to kya kiya tumne zindagi mein?" All that. And then this storm came, and the fisherman could not really manage the boat, so boat started sinking. Now fisherman asked him, "Professor साहब, आपको तैरना आता है कि नहीं आता है?" तो उनका, "नहीं, मुझे नहीं आता तैरना." तो उनका, "करे तैरना नहीं आता है तो आपने क्या किया?" "So I am leaving you here and I am going out." So it's important that whatever your profession is, learn other facets of life. This is what I want to tell you through this story. Okay. This is also important to live a stress-free life, that you just don't be with the profession. People who work hard in profession to reach heights, as they call it, always puts them and others around them in stress. Remember this. It is important to be stress-free because we have a hardcore evidence from the Indian corporates or the workplaces in the country of professionals that close to 80% people have stress, live with stress. In 55%, it is so severe that it requires ideally a counseling or some more intensive treatment. So it's important to recognize this element in the life as you are beginning as a professional, that don't get into stress. You have to learn to get out of the stress. And for that it's important that you know these three components: desires, thoughts and expectations. We keep having desires, and there are many more desires. It keeps coming in your mind. The mind is something which works faster than computer. You can get into many desires, and as you get into many desires, it brings in more thoughts. As it brings in more thoughts, it brings more expectations. But the solution is, if you have lesser desires, it is better. Because then your number of thoughts that you will get to achieve those desires will be lesser. And if you have less thoughts, then your expectations will also reduce. Am I making sense? Do not decide your desires with certainty. This is what I want, but do not have more than maybe 3 desires in your life. If you have 20 desires, your life will be haphazard. I have not brought in a picture here, but it will be something like a maze through which you generally don't get out. And you are always feeling stressed, ye karoon, wo karoon, ye kar sakta hoon, ye chhod deta hoon. And that is what keeps happening. The Holy Scripture Gita. I was introduced by my father into this some 5 years ago. And only yesterday I told my father that you have given me the best gift of life after giving birth. This is something which has helped me evolve, and I have heard this of so many people. So that's my respect for the scripture. But nonetheless, there is no compulsion whether you read it or not. However, we all know and we learned it right from our childhood that we need to follow our duty without worrying about the results or the fruits. Okay? This we all agree, and this is ingrained into us. But many a times we forget about it. That's the challenge. And to lead that stress-free life, it is important to bring it into the practice. That what you do every time in your profession or anywhere in your life, you do it as your duty without getting into stress. If you can take it very quietly, in a very sincere manner, without any anger or greed or lust or anything into it, you will see that your life becomes peaceful. It becomes stress-free. And that's why I brought in this reference here, that it's important to follow your duty. So your duty here, of course, is to study and do well in the subject, learn the subject very well, be very efficient. Naturally, you will get degree. That should not be an issue at all. The institute and the faculty are so very good in rewarding rightly the people who work harder and really can get a lot of accolades as well. But don't worry about your positions. Don't worry about your grades. It's important that you do not work for that, but you work for the acquisition of knowledge. Then your life will be stress-free here also. And similarly elsewhere outside the institution as well. Because it's important to remember that life has 2 certainties. One, we all know. Most of us fear that as well. Although there is no need to fear. As a doctor, I can tell you that 70% we die very peacefully, and the person who dies doesn't feel anything. It's the people around who really have the pain, because they get the sense of loss of that person, and that persists. That's very serious loss many times, and you really find that families are shattered. But there's no need to be fearful of the death. But there's also second certainty, which is change. How many of you had heard of change as a second certainty, as a theory in the life which is very important to be looked into? Okay. Nonetheless, change keeps occurring every moment. What you have heard from me today, you did not expect this. As I am going to talk about all these issues in the life. Happiness, stress-free life, change, death, nothing of that sort. But learn to expect and accept this change every time. You have number of friends, you have number of people who are looking after you here, number of faculty members, some professors, and they can tell you sometimes some things which you do not want to accept or doesn't become palatable to you. But accept that as a change. But you can accept that as a change only when you have expected it, that okay, this has come. That's fine. I did not expect, but yes, this is something which I think can always happen. If you have that attitude in you that yes, a change can occur anytime and I'll accept that change and I will flow with it like the river, the water flows in the river around the rocks, your life will not have a problem. Most of the times you will lead a stress-free life because you have accommodated or adopted to that change. This is important to understand the value of the change. And what can change do therefore? It can help you from what you are now into what you will become eventually. Those who resist change, they get into stress. They don't change, and because they don't change, without realizing that the change is for their good mostly, and it's primarily they don't change because they are fearing their own fear. And this is something which is important to be understood. But explore this change. As I said in the beginning, that you need to explore your change, the situation of change, whether you can accept it or not. If you cannot accept it, you should have a personality which can assert, talk to that person who is the change maker as to why this change has occurred, and try and understand it better. Develop right understanding for the situation which has changed. Once you get that perception, then the things will be different. Okay? So it's important therefore to be in the present. Only if you are in the present you can do all that I have told you. You can be happier, you can accept and expect the change, and then you can also lead a stressful life. But mostly what happens? We are either in past, which we cannot change, that before I came to this lecture I was very happy. This is quite a boring lecture. I did not enjoy it at all. I am just sitting here and your language may be bilkul